Hello and welcome to From the Couch Sports Talk Radio. I am Sean. I'm here with Jeff, Eric, and KD. We apologize for being a couple minutes late, but David is having some technical difficulties. He owns a Dell, which is the Applebee's of the computer world. Applebee's, the official sponsor of the NFL.
Not even Applebee's. It's more like Shoney's.
Yeah. Can we say moron?
For all our listener, oh yeah, there we are, David. Hello. If we can get a pool going and like if everyone could like, we're gonna get a GoFundMe account to earn like $12 to upgrade David's computer to a reasonable thing. But okay, anyway, welcome to the show. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, and notify for all of our latest updates. How's everyone doing tonight?
I'm good, man.
All right, Jeffrey, how you doing? You didn't want to be here, but David kind of roped you into it because his computer.
I always want to be here, but I'm kind of working. Like I have my work here, and I'm talking to y'all here. So if I seem a little, blah blah blah, I'm working. I'm actually like focusing on shit that isn't some random bullshit conversation that Eric and I have all day long, every day about stupidity.
Okay, Eric, how you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm pretty good. Actually, Jeff and I had good conversations about life today, so it's a good day, right, Jeff?
Much better than hearing your nonsensical shit. I like the shit we talked about today. We should do that every day.
Oh, there you go. They care about each other. It's beautiful. So, real quick,
I don't even know how to do this the right way.
Oh, dear God. Oh, my God. Oh, I don't know where to go from that. Okay, so I'll go to Caitlin Clark, who a couple of weeks ago had said, well, different played in college versus the pros and how she wasn't doing well. But last night she put up amazing numbers, fastest rookie ever to reach 100 points. Only one of 5 who's ever put up those kind of numbers. Anyone have any comment about that, or does anyone even know that happened?
Oh, I knew it happened.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I like the media coverage she's getting, but it's just like any other rookie coming in. It's going to take them a little bit to get their feet underneath them, and then they should be fine. So as long as she keep progressing and just keep playing, and then just don't jump off the cliff mentally, I think she'll be fine. She keep doing what she's doing. But her team, Lord have mercy, like
they're terrible.
Godly.
That's why they had the first pick of the draft, right?
Right.
Yeah. It's funny. I got to tell you, like, Katie, you say you like the media coverage. I hate the media coverage. I enjoy it for what it's doing for the sport, but this goes back to our conversation during the Final Four. And I'm so over it. Like it's media coverage that's generating viewership, which is fine for the sport. And I love that for the sport. I hate the means in which they're doing it because it's like I'm listening to all these people talk about privilege and bullshit, and it frustrates me because of this, right? And we don't have to get into long racial diatribes, and because I'm not going to go down that path because it just gets stupid. Not with us. I mean, I think we have a good conversation always when it comes to anything that resembles some level of one way or the other. It's good dialogue that we have, so I appreciate that. But out here in the public view, it always is skewed and looked at as some crazy shit. My frustration is that representation matters, right? It matters. It's mattered forever, and it still does. So when you see the vast majority of WNBA players, and whether it's because they're gay or they're black or whatever it may be, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, and that's what it is. But up to this point, because Sue Bird is not black, she's a white lady, right? I mean, but she never garnered that level of collegiate athlete to pros. That never happened with her for whatever reason it was. She's amazing, don't get me wrong, but it never happened. Now it has, right? But the reality is Caitlin Clark, she's good. Is she the greatest of all time? No, she's a rookie and she should be treated as such. But the reality is through the craziness that was the Final Four, and oh, by the way, the entire season based on the ring wave by Reese the year before, it garnered a lot of viewership from myriads of people. Black, white, straight, gay, didn't matter what, but it just attracted folks, right? And here we are into a point where the groups of people that are now watching WNBA are not the same that have not for the last 15 years. And that group was like this big. Now that group is excessively large. So to me, I'm happy for that stuff. But the reality is representation matters. She's a straight white female, and I get it. There's people that like her. If they're white or otherwise, they like her. And oh, by the way, the competition that's in there now, because Reese is still amazing. And she's in the league now. And that brought more viewers, right? But she's not getting the praise. And I heard someone say that, and I said, well, he was also the 7th pick. Caitlin Clark was the number 1 pick. Jordan was the number 1. I mean, excuse me, not Jordan, but LeBron James was the number 1 pick, right? LeBron James in his rookie year was labeled King James. They fouled him on every game. He was a rookie. Not to know that he would be where he's at today, and we can argue that all day long. But the bottom line is when LeBron James was a rookie, he was labeled the king, and he was followed along the journey as such for 82 games. Here we are in a 40-game season that the WNBA has, and she's being followed because why? She's the highest touted rookie in years. And anyway, so all that being said is it's crazy. It's nuts. It has some level of dislike by me as far as the coverage that's being there. But I love the fact that right now there are a significant amount of people watching the WNBA. I am included in that. And I've only watched one Indiana game. I have seen a couple Chicago games. I've seen a game. By the way, FYI, never in my lifetime prior to a month ago did I see one single WNBA game. I think I've watched 6 this year. And it's exciting. It's nice. And it has everything to do with the people that are in the league. I love it. I mean, it's fine. But good on her. I'm glad she stepped up and did something because it's been looking rough for her for the first few weeks. But, I think that should be as expected.
Yeah. The thing that you was talking about, Jeff, is what I want to focus on is kind of like how our country is, right? Right now, it's either or, right? It's not a lot of you got Democrat, you got Republican. It's like there's no other. You got black, you got white, you got straight, you got gay, and it's like so. Right now, it was like almost a perfect time to do this because hey, you had a person who on paper looked completely opposite of Caitlin Clark, and now they can kind of progress together in the league. And so what they're sitting there doing it from a marketing standpoint, it's just like what we talked about when it comes down to the sexual orientation of the WNBA as a whole, right? Not all of them, but as a whole majority, a good bit of them, hey, it's hey, they're quote unquote they're gay. So now you have this straight person that comes in. Now it's like, oh, okay, that could be a story to write in itself, right? So the media is going to twist it any way they can, and it's just a wordplay, a gigantic wordplay type of thing. And at the end of the day, for me, it's you still have the competitive edge in here, but if you look at the Sue Birds, the Cynthia Coopers, the Shamika Holslaws, all those girls when they came in, who was their arch nemesis? Who's their arch rival? You know what I'm saying? It's like none of those girls went after each other. Whereas with these two, they came in, they went after each other in college. So now it's like, oh, this big ticket item. And if you look at the numbers are almost doubled in certain places, in certain arenas. So they're feeding right into it. I just hope they put the right resources to where now when that story dies down, they have something to go off of instead of just the you versus me or us versus them type of attitude.
Look, man, I don't think it's good. I mean, I hope what I hope is that people watch this, start to watch and start to really get excited for the game on the court, what the game is, right? I mean, I've watched highlights of this is why people don't watch the WNBA, and I like on Instagram or something, and it's a bunch of bad basketball, right? But I've seen some pretty good basketball, and I will say this: you go back in time, and like I got to be 100. And this is me being naive or me not giving a fuck. I didn't know that it was more than 50% lesbian in the league. I don't care. Like I don't look at the NFL and be like, I'm gonna watch this because it's more than 75% straight, right? Like that doesn't hit me like that. Like that's not it. But I heard that on the news on ESPN or whatever show. I was like, wow, that's great. But again, it becomes a cover story, and then it becomes they're watching it now because these are homophobic folks that are now watching it because they're straight. And I'm like, look, I don't know. Maybe that could very well be someone's perspective. It's sure as hell as mine. Right. But the other part is, in years past, I don't like when Sue Bird isn't like. She didn't enter the WNBA when the WNBA started, right? But when you start looking at some of the women that were amazing in the WNBA, who gives a shit? And I don't mean it that way about their skill, their talent. What I'm saying is when the WNBA was created, there wasn't some huge media buzz. Like they brought it up, but it didn't garner people. It didn't bring people. And then over the years, even with look, I love Candace Parker, man. She's like one of my favorite people. I truly respect her. But I still didn't watch WNBA. I watched it when she was in school, but when she went to WNBA, I didn't. But I say that to say, even when she came in, even when Diana Taurasi, who was great with all her great players at UConn, it still wasn't that generated. Now, whether it's Angel Reese, because Angel Reese and her created this, Batman and whatever the villain is or whomever, whatever that is, it created it. We lasted it through college. It entered in at the same time in the WNBA, and now people are watching it for the matchup, right? And they're good players, man. Plus, oh, by the way, Chicago's doing better, but didn't they have the number 2 or 3 pick too? They had 3 and 7, right? Or 2 and 7. So they got Angel Reese at 7, but they've got the girl from didn't they get the girl from South Carolina?
South Carolina, yeah, the one from Brazil.
The beast. She is a mammoth. I love that. She's a killer. But anyway, but it's an interesting thing. And good on Caitlin Clark for actually doing something. I mean, she struggled, but she didn't last night. So good on her.
I got you instead.
All right.
Hey, so I just want to add into this real quick. As Eli brought me a monster that'll keep me up all night. So like, look, I like what Charles Barkley kind of said. And the one thing I don't understand about the WNBA, it's got me watching it, is these girls are trying to run Caitlin Clark out of the league. And I get there's a rookie initiation and all that. But, hey, she's making the game better. She's drawing money to the game, and she's drawing interest to the game. And you all have flights that are chartered now, and you're not sitting in buses and stuff going places. So let's give her credit for, for bringing money to the game here.
Oh,
can we just put up Mama Witt's last comment here? The latest one, please. Yeah. So even Eric's mother knows that Dell computers suck. David, hang your head in shame.
I know. I understand. So I'm just going to say one thing about the WNBA. Basketball's around and they bounce. And that's about what I got.
All right.
You don't watch basketball.
Okay. So today, well, it's been ongoing a little bit, but Ayuk and Deebo Samuel are not president OTAs, which is not a big deal, but it's a deal. But San Francisco just extended Jennings in 3 years, 15.4.
Yep.
Is this a big deal or is it not?
No.
Why?
$5 million for a number 3 receiver. It's not a big deal.
Well, no, I'm talking about Ayuk and Samuel. They're holding out for better deals. Is this?
Well, the fact is,
anything into this?
The fact is, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are doing the same thing in Cincinnati.
Right.
These are OTAs. They're not mandatory. I mean, hell, we traded Stephon Diggs to the Houston Texans, and he's not at OTAs. So again, they're not mandatory. I wouldn't put any weight into anything until training camp comes, and then maybe when that happens, then we'll worry about it. But it's just posturing, I guess, at this point.
So,
anyone have any other take on it?
I don't necessarily think it's a big deal that they're not at OTAs. and I don't necessarily think the Jennings extension is a big deal just based on $1. Debo's locked in, so he's not getting a better deal. I mean, remember, they were going to trade Debo, but it was going to trade his contract. Ayuk's got to be the one you're concerned with, right? I mean, so they drafted that receiver in the first or second round. I can't remember where they picked the receiver at.
Ricky Trusso?
Yeah, where'd they grab him at?
Fourth, I think.
Oh, I thought it was early. Yeah, I think it was second.
Did they draft him at the end of the first round?
No. It wasn't first. I didn't think he was first round. Maybe second
round.
Second or third.
Either way, the reality it was high. It was high. It was one or two, first or second round, because that was when people were saying during the draft that they were going to move Ayuk during the draft because of that pick. Like that's where all the conversation started. Where actually it heated up for Pittsburgh, and we won't get into the Pittsburgh. I'm not going to talk nonsense, but that's where the conversation really started to heat up with Pittsburgh, was just based on that selection. All that being said is, I do think, just like I think there's a couple players on rosters right now that won't be on rosters come opening day. I think there's some movement that's going to happen in the NFL prior to preseason. They might make their workouts, but I think Ayuk's going to play hardball, and I do think I think it's not a huge deal. OTAs, like David said, when training camp comes around, and he's not there. It'll be a big deal. Just like T. Higgins. I mean, T. Higgins has said, I'm not going to sign my franchise tag, all this other stuff, and it sounds good because we're in May. But come June, July, and as we creep closer to August, it's going to become a big deal. They're going to have to do something. Otherwise, they're going to have players sit out and all that good stuff.
Can I ask you guys a question?
No, David, no, you cannot, because you said Sean's asking all the questions.
Go to work.
Wow. Does Eric or KD have anything to say about this before I will turn the floor over to you, David, as soon as it's done for one question?
Eric can go ahead. I'll go after him.
That's fine. I'll be quick. San Francisco drafted Ricky Purcell, the 31st pick in the draft. I looked it up in the while we were talking. I agree with Jeff, and there's a couple things. It's really interesting to see what kind of transpires come August and July here when they start reporting. I think there'll be some significant additions. So a lot of moves right now, like cap saving moves, will be interesting because they're going to be what you're not really doing anything right now, but you're anticipating doing something here in August when these guys don't show up. Ayuk and T. Higgins will not be playing for their teams this year. They won't. They'll be traded. So right now, read the tea leaves. Whatever team frees up cap space or has significant cap space and isn't spending it is anticipating getting one of those guys. So I really think this will be really I think it'll be play out, and it'll be out there for all of us to know what's going to go on based on which teams end up clearing post June 1st cuts here real quickly.
Katie?
Yeah. So all I was going to say is what Eric alluded to at the end was the post 1 June cuts is what's going to matter. What kind of significant moves happen around that time or shortly thereafter is going to kind of how to dictate how these guys end up being pursued in free agency. So.
All right, I just got one question because it is from it was a thing posed by Pro Football Talk, so I want to get your opinions. Do the wide receivers go way of running backs in terms of their compensation with all of the wide receivers that are coming out of college now that are, I want to say, pro ready or almost pro ready? Do the contracts of $30 million a year for wide receivers go by the wayside when they can be replaced in college? When you get a guy for 5 years on a rookie deal, do you draft another one as opposed to have to pay that wide receiver, especially with quarterback salaries going the way they are?
I'm going to say no, because not the total 30 million, but it's going to be hard not to give him 20 to 25. And here's the reason why. Because at any given time, you have 3 to 4 wide receivers on the field, right? And I will tell you, there are a lot more misses on wide receivers than there are hits, right? Even though there's a lot more selected. And it's so hard for you to unlock a wide receiver's potential versus, hey, if I got a running back, I know he can run. I know he can run between the tackles or outside the tackles. Then I can just put him in that position and he's good to go, right? But you take a wide receiver like I'll use one of our ones, Miles Boykin, right? He was a decent product coming out of college, right? But he never progressed into what we thought he could be in the NFL. So if you turn around and you say, hey, look, I'm gonna take Miles Borkins to replace a Mike Evans, right? We know, hey, they may be similar in size, it may be similar in some of their abilities, but we just know that that dude is not going to give me the same thing as a Mike Evans. So I think if they play devil's advocate like that, that's cool. But that means your scout department got to be really, really head on when it comes down to actually looking at the talent and dissecting what their abilities are. To where when you bring them in, you know exactly what it is, how you want to employ those receivers. So
I will say this. I believe wholeheartedly that once you start something, it's very difficult to change it, right? So what I mean by that, Dave, is I don't see that happening. And if we did see that happen, I think that would be what they call collusion, right? I know all this, like that's like a Donald Trump made up word. I know it's a real word, by the way. I understand it, but like it sounds better than conspiring. So they say collusion. But anyway, neither here nor there. You'd have to have 32 owners get on in the meetings and say, listen, all of you, stop this bullshit. Which could happen. I mean, it could happen. Don't get me wrong. I say that because Dave, if as we see it right now, the guaranteed dollar for Tyreek Hill is at $100 million. So who's the next $100 million receiver, right? So you know that Justin Jefferson is going to be your next guy. He is the next receiver that's going to get it. So are they going to make that decision before, or are they going to wait until after him? Because here's my reality is that we could say all 32 of us teams could be like, yeah, no more of these contracts. Let's break it back down to 10.2. That's going to be our cap. As soon as Justin Jefferson touches free agency, I'm going to give this dude $85 million and renege on my agreement, because the reality is that nobody's as good as Justin Jefferson. So he is that fact. I just don't see it happening and over a course of the next 5 to 10 years. I think if it does, it's going to be a long time down the road. Right. Dave, receivers have come in the league always. I mean, I think it's interesting to me that you said it, and I'm not going to say you're the only one. I've heard it somewhere else too, which I think is silly. Receivers are a dime a dozen. Yes, there are the great ones, right? There are those guys that are just phenomenal. And you get maybe one or two of those guys in a draft per year. Last year, you didn't get any of them, except for Puka Nacua came out of nowhere. But remember, he didn't get drafted until the 5th round or something. And I had told you before, there wasn't a single wide receiver in the 1st round that should be taken in the 1st round. This year, they came out in the droves, right? But they came out of droves because they were good. But what does that look like in translation to the NFL? We'll see. I just think that, again, running backs are a dime a dozen, but you have generational talent. But they were able to cap them because of the fact that their lifespan is so short, just based on the amount of abuse they take, play in and play out. Receivers, usually they get
is that a form of your collusion, though? I mean, owners basically said we're not going to pay these guys this money.
No, sure. Yeah, I believe it is. But Dave, I would ask you, because I don't have the stats in front of me, right? I would ask you, at what point did they curve the running back salary? Because here's the deal. I think we could have seen that maybe 3 years ago or 4 years ago when we said running backs just aren't getting paid what they used to. But here's the deal. Go back. It wasn't like an instant cut on that. It was a progressive downturn on salaries. I mean, you might get one receiver or one running back that had gotten some loot. Like, I think Derrick Henry might have been the last real receiver that got some money. But even
Elliott is the one who got the big contract last.
Okay, and that's fine. And look what and since his contract, he ain't done shit except for became the number 1 blocker in the NFL for a few years because he hasn't run for shit.
And that kind of confirmed everything, because I don't know if you guys remember when we did the show, we were talking about running backs, and I had the graph up. And so what happened was, it's like, so for instance, there used to be a bunch of 350 carry running backs in the league, right? So what was happening is people were the teams themselves were basically taking carries away from those running backs. And so then it was, hey, okay, look, I don't want to give you $15 million a year. because you're not even a third of my offense, right? And then that's not even including the snaps, because if you look at the snaps, right, I'm not asking most of my running backs to pass block. Most of the time, I bring in somebody else and I'll ask them to pass block, the one that's going to get the 295 plus carries. So right then and there, when you start to see that, it was a no brainer that, hey, I don't, out of my 1,100 plays that I run, you're only on the field for 300 of them. I'm not going to pay you half of the salary or half of my cap because you think that you deserve it. And then
Yeah.
that's where the whole thing came in. And hey, I'm gonna go get a rookie running back to do this because they can do just as much as you. With,
And
less carries.
a couple other small points, and I'll stop talking because I'm sure Eric has something he wants to say. I just keep talking, but I just want to throw these points out there. The other part that when they were talking the running back specifically paid, right? When you go back to when they actually started really curving it, look at who was winning Super Bowls because it wasn't the highest paid running backs that were winning Super Bowls. Now, I'll also say, look at the wide receivers who have won Super Bowls recently. Give me the top paid wide receiver that won a Super Bowl because guess what? Tyreek Hill won one before he got paid. Mike Evans won one before he just got his last contract. I mean, Mike Evans was getting paid well, don't get me wrong, but he wasn't. But even in that year, he wasn't the best receiver for Tampa. I mean, he was a good receiver, but they weren't using him all the time. Tight ends were being used because, well, Tom Brady's a tight end guy. So I say all that to say, where does the correlation, and owners have to see it. David, I don't discard what you're saying because it could happen. I don't see it happening anytime soon, but you got to look at the receiving core that's out there. I mean, hell, Diggs was a top paid receiver. He had top paid numbers. He didn't have a Super Bowl. You had Tyreek Hill had top numbers. No, not even a playoff win, right? I mean, so look, you look at these numbers, and maybe the NFL owners look at that and say, we can base our decisions on, bringing down that cap number based on why we did it for the running backs. The only thing I would say and caution you with that thought process is, who's the first $100 million guaranteed per year quarterback, right? Because at the end, if I'm not paying a receiver, if I'm not paying a running back, if I'm not paying my left tackle or right tackle, even though my left tackle is the most high paid offensive line, where's the outrageous money going to go? It's got to be spent somewhere, and the players know that, right? So the quarterback has that leverage to say, well, you're not paying here because this is your range. Well, I want a guaranteed $85 million per year as opposed to the 55 that Tua was looking for, or whatever shit craziness he was looking for.
Go ahead, Eric.
So I to lead back to Katie's initial thought in terms of rookies coming in and replacing some of the veteran receivers. The reason being, and I just wanted to make this observation because being a Baltimore hater for my entire life, I've watched a lot of Baltimore Ravens games, and they tried for a long time to replace some veterans, and they'd always have to bring in a Steve Smith or an Anquan Bolden or another receiver of that nature in order to get their offense to go. So I don't think that, and I do think it's a risk and a gamble to take teams like Buffalo, to take teams like Pittsburgh, to take teams like that have rookies that are going to need to significantly contribute, and to say, well, we're going to be fine in the passing game. Maybe. I mean, it just depends on what all pieces you have around them. And so I don't think they're replaceable, and I don't think receivers like running back where you can plug them in. You got to be able to break off reads. You got to be able to run, be able to what happens on a scramble drill and be able to be in sync with your quarterback. And that takes years and years of chemistry together. So I think it's a risky gamble having a wide receiver with option routes, and as tough as it is in the NFL nowadays, replacing veterans. I don't think it can.
Unless you have Russell Wilson, because then he's all automatic. Just kidding. But real quick, I got to tell you, and so this is my thought process here, right? So when you look at a Miami Dolphin team, right? So Tua is throwing the ball majority of time to Tyreek Hill, right? I mean, by a lot. I mean, it's not even like close, by the way. Like Jalen Watt, I was always wondering why isn't he throwing it to Waddle? I mean, Waddle is, in my opinion, a value add receiver. He could be a one in certain places. He was before Hill got there. But there's a lot of emphasis on getting him the ball. There's a lot of emphasis on getting Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, the number ones, the real number ones, the Stephon Diggs the ball. But what I found to be very fascinating is even in Kansas City when Hill was there, they didn't force feed the ball to anybody. They gave the ball. They distributed the ball equally across. Yes, Tyreek Hill had catches. Kelsey had catches, but so did what's his name? Hardman, right? He wasn't a great guy, but he had catches. They were able to distribute and not force the ball. So I would tell you, if you have an offensive coordinator that understands the distribution abilities of a quarterback and then throws an offense together that has a scheme that you can kind of not have to force this guy because he's getting paid a lot, it opens up a little bit of opportunities for everybody to go. And, oh, by the way, your number one corner is on this guy, but that guy's not getting the ball. That guy is. Or you don't know who's going to, because there is no classified. I'm just going to say this one thing, David. I'm going to stop talking. It made me laugh. And this really has no point to what I'm going to say, what we're talking about. But I remember listening to people talk about, now that Stephon Diggs is gone, Allen will stop force feeding it to Diggs. Well, Allen only threw 5 interceptions while throwing it to Diggs out of his 18. There was no 5 and 3 of those were long passes that were just to get the ball out of the thing. And Diggs didn't compete for the ball, or it actually got beat by 1 on Whitehead. But at the end of the day, there wasn't force feeding to Diggs that caused interceptions. It was to Kincaid and to Davis for the most part. All that being said, when you do have a receiver that is that top dollar receiver, you got to throw him the ball. Some quarterbacks do better than others, but the reality is when you don't have that guy like Mahomes had last year, he had to distribute the ball to everybody, and they still kept dropping the shit. But that happened on multiple teams than just Kansas City. So anyhow.
All righty. I want to hit on 2 things real quick, and then I want to go to kind of the main last debate of the night. There have been talks by the NFL Players Association about the OTAs, some changes where they will eliminate part of the OTAs, organized team activities. So not a lot of people don't know that. But so they want to cut that a little shorter, but have a bigger ramp up to actual training camp, which I personally think is a good idea. If anyone wants to talk about this, you got 1 minute. Anyone have any thoughts on it, KD?
Katie, I'll let you talk about it first.
This is my only gripe about it. I love the idea. My only thing is you would basically have to take the draft back, because you're essentially going to limit the rookies. Because this time right now that we're in, even though it's kind of like a dead period for the vets and the guys that already made the roster, this is prime time for the rookies. In order to get them there and incorporate them with the team, because some of them are going to come in and they don't have a kind of figure it out and wait or wait till week 10 to actually come and contribute. Some of these guys are picked to come in and fill vital roles right out the bat, right? So my thing is, when is it going to be enough time? Is it going to be enough time to get them acclimated and situated within the offense, within the building, within the organization, all that, and then say, okay, look, we can go ahead and progress. I love the proposal. My concern is the rookies. That's my whole big ordeal.
My only thought process is this is the NFLPA gearing up towards an 18-game season. So they're basically trying to limit the off-season work to have it be more all flowing towards the training camp aspect of it, because they're going to be limited with their preseason games to 2, and they're going to be going right into a regular season, and they're going to be going into an 18-game regular season. So to put less wear and tear on their body with the OTAs and stuff, they're going to kind of all ramp it up and gear it up all towards the training camp into the regular season. So not that it's a good thing, because to KD's point, you're absolutely correct. The rookies need that opportunity to gel and do, but I think that's what they're trying to gear themselves up.
I think so. Katie's point is taken. David, your point with him is taken. I don't give a shit what they're gearing up for. I don't like the idea of limiting it, shortening it, moving it. I like where it's at. And here's why I like where it's at. The rookies are a thing. But here's the deal, right? If we want to talk about parity in the NFL, and we want to talk about it doesn't matter what big market, small market, all this other stuff is, well, then let's be realistic. Because here's the reality. Let's just use, I don't know, the Atlanta Falcons as an example. Raheem Morris is the coach. He's a brand new coach with brand new coaching staff, and they sucked last year, right? So what do? You shorten the time for him to get his people with the veterans to get new playbooks and all this other stuff that they got to do. So when they do get to the actual practice, they're kind of there, right? They're able to maneuver and they can practice and now be on kickoff at least somewhat of a level playing field with the people like an Andy Reid led, Mike Tomlin led teams, these teams that have consistency and all that stuff. You're penalizing a team already who's penalized for sucking. They get a new coach and they should have the opportunity to at least have their people together so they can run over the playbook. They can understand who they are, to get to know their players. And, if they do anything that's team activities, they get fined if it's not an OTA. So you push OTAs out, then it's problematic for the whole thing, rookies and veterans, because here's the deal. And I would use this for the Pittsburgh Steelers specifically. You got Russell Wilson, who's a veteran. I get it. Coming into a new team with a brand new OC. I will tell you this. I know that Eric's talking about, their chemistry, he's building, he's working, he's all this shit. Well, that's good. And he's still going to be behind week 1. It's the nature of the beast of learning a whole new playbook, learning all new people, and learning everything that goes along with it. It's just the way what it is. Now, does he fumble on week 1 and get better by week 2, or does it last 8 weeks? Who knows? But the reality is why would we set them up for failure or making a choice? You're penalizing them for a choice. It should be equal across the board. Let them get in line and just and all that stuff with the people. I don't find it to be a problem. It's only a problem because, like David said, they're gearing up for some stupid shit that to me is irrelevant.
So Jeff, you've said the
My bad. That was long. I'm sorry.
I'm not mad about the time. I'm mad about you bringing up you invoking the devil's name in the show tonight. But I mean, what defines an organized team activity? Does Josh Allen taking him to go study bugs in Africa or wherever the hell he went? I mean, is that team activity? That's team bonding. So, I think we've put too much limit on organized team activities. I can guarantee you these guys are talking every day and they're discussing what the offense is going to look like. They're doing schematics. I can tell you, just being around high school ball, I mean, we ramp up, and we've been ramping up since April, and we have at team activities. The NFL is a cash cow. They're just trying to make this season. They're just trying to.
Ding.
What's that?
What's that dinging?
Oh, that's Mono Witt coaching me about.
No, that's fine. I just didn't know if it was I don't know if you saw me. I thought it was because I got somehow.
I thought people were subscribing as we spoke because it was this is such a good
man. Eric is great.
I'm sorry. She's
no. I don't care as long as it wasn't me. I thought I was losing my mind. Anyway, go ahead.
But I mean, it's just they're already doing these things. So I mean, the NFL is making a big deal out of something just to have that control. And like Dave said, they want 18 games because they're trying to make money and they're trying to pump as much as they can into this season. I can tell you, a longer season, a longer training camp that starts in early July, and they want the season to go all the way to February. There are going to be a lot more injuries. Going to be a lot more people getting hurt. Football's a tough sport. It's a contact sport, and so if you want to ramp up and start hitting early. They're not hitting in OTAs very much. It's football in shorts. So I don't know why we're taking it away.
I agree. But I think you can talk about stuff all day long, but you actually got to get out there and do it, right? I mean, not full speed, but get out there on the field, throw the ball around, just even bullshit. And if it's studying bugs in Africa, so be it. And oh, by the way, Mama Witt, you're good. Do what you do. I'm just being honest when I tell you, somehow, some way I set my phone up onto my computer. So every time I get a text message, my computer dings. But what was happening to me, I don't care that it was happening. I just know that it was dinging and I wasn't getting a text message. So I was like, is it my computer or somebody else?
Hey, Jeff, I just got to say this because we were in a chat before we came on. And I thought your mom was giving you the lines to read. And I wanted you to read the teleprompter and say pause, after you said something. I was so hoping that, Eric. Then I definitely would have been right about who I called you in the chat.
You have already, and if my dad's listening to the show, he's going to be super offended that you called me Joe Biden. And so
no, I didn't. I'm not saying that.
No, here we go.
Stop.
There you go. Okay. There you go, Sean. Get him.
So we called him
here. I'm going to take back over. So Nico Collins got an extension today, which was good. He was like the number, I think, 3 receiver in the league last year. But here's what I want to get into for our last little bit. Can someone please put up my little graphic there? The NFL Network had a list of their 9 most complete teams today. And so you got the Niners, Baltimore, Kansas City, Detroit, Eagles, Bengals, Texans, Green Bay, and the Browns as the top 9. Oh, yeah, look at them. Well, first of all, if Ayuk leaves San Francisco and Higgins leaves the Bengals, would you consider them still a complete team?
I don't consider the Bengals complete. Billy Price, their center, just had to retire based on medical issues. So their shaky offensive line just got shakier. The anchor in the middle of their offensive line, I don't know if they were prepared for that to happen. So I don't necessarily agree that the Bengals are one of the 9 most complete teams. As far as if Ayuk or Higgins leave, I think in Frisco's case, I think they have the backup to absorb Brandon Ayuk leaving. They do have Samuel, they have Purcell, they have Juwan Jennings, but they have Christian McCaffrey. So Christian McCaffrey would make up for any loss of an Ayuk leaving. I think that's the one thing we tend to forget, at least in my opinion, and my opinion could be wrong. I have many wrong opinions. Trust me. The one team on here that I will say that I don't agree with as being a complete team. I know they won the Super Bowl, but Kansas City. I mean, I know from a coaching standpoint and everything, but if I looked at their offense today and going into it with the fact that Rashee Rice might not be there based on his legal troubles, they have Xavier Worthy, a rookie. I don't look at Kansas City as a complete team. I just don't. I don't see Kansas City as one of those, nor do I see Pittsburgh, Eric. So stop shaking your head. That's my thoughts.
All right, let me get real quick on this because this is why these 3 teams, well, Baltimore will, because I have a lot of respect for them, will be around, but these other 2 won't. First off, the Bengals weren't just bad because Joe Burrow wasn't there. There was a lot that was wrong with that team. And now some of their best players want new contracts and don't want to play for them, and they're a complete team. That is an asinine. This is why these people aren't quote unquote experts. I mean, who the hell made them experts?
Oh,
Oh, here we go with the experts. Here's Eric's experts thing. It's only expert if they say Russell Wilson's winning the Super Bowl in Pittsburgh.
But I mean, Cleveland, Deshaun Watson has 13 touchdowns in 2 years. What makes them a complete team? I mean, they have great defense. I mean, their defense.
He didn't play 34 games though. Unlike Kenny Pickett, who has
played 22 games and thrown 13 touchdowns and been ass. He's not been very good. And they got Jameis Winston as their backup, and we all know we're not going to compare who Jameis Winston is. I don't have time for that. So I'm just saying, I don't know who's evaluating these teams. There's a few of them. I mean, Kansas City deserves the respect for being a champion. They've got a great defense and a great quarterback. Baltimore's got pretty good defense, maybe not as good as they were last year, but that's different. We'll work on that later. Good offense. Lions are good. Texans are going to be there. Green Bay is going to be there. Those are teams that are up and coming. Philadelphia's is a mess. I don't know if their coaching staff is good enough to consider being a complete team because he doesn't have complete control of his locker room. So, I mean, whoever made this list, I'm interested to research who the writer is. I should apply.
So the writer is a highly paid NFL expert, like you always reference when you tell me why some dumb shit you said is correct. Anyhow, listen, bottom line is in this list, I can understand the concept of all of them, and I'm not going to argue any of them because I actually do feel that as of right now today, they're complete teams. They all have a starting franchise quarterback. They all have a good running back. They all have good receivers. They all have a good look, Philadelphia is out of all the teams, Philly's my question, and it has nothing to do with their lineup because they're complete. They're team-wise, look, this is like the 5th year in a row that they went out and signed like the best of the best free agents and for no money, and you're wondering how they did it. But at the end of the day, like you said, Eric, their coaching is not great. So that's where my But as far as the players on these teams, man, San Francisco is a beast. They've been for 5 years. Baltimore's good, and I know that they only got better with the addition of Henry. I know that on defense they lost a couple of role players and they brought some role players. They're always good on defense because that's what they breed. So I'm okay with that. And even when they're bad, they're good. I wouldn't disagree too much from David, but I say Patrick Mahomes gets them over the hump on the offense because Andy Reid puts a great plan into place and they execute, and they do it time and time and time again, regardless of the people on the field. So it is what it is. I don't necessarily agree with Green Bay and Houston because, again, I'm not sold on the 2 second-year quarterbacks. That's my issue, and that will always be my issue because they had good years last year. It's kind of why we don't see Seattle up there. That's it. On top of all that, Burrow is back, which is significant. I don't know about Watson being back being significant. I know Chubb's going to be out I don't think he's coming back week 1. I mean, there's some questions. But I will tell you that I don't see these as 9 playoff teams. I mean, personally, but we'll see what it looks like at the end of the year. I'd love to keep this. As a matter of fact, Sean, please keep this graphic, because I'd like to when the season's over, look at this as far as the most complete teams and just see out of these 9 who didn't make it, because there are teams on this thing that aren't making the playoffs this year. I mean, we can go through it when we actually get closer to the season, when the rosters are actually set, we actually pick our division winners and playoff contenders and all that good stuff. We'll go through that. But
yeah. I save everything except for anything that could get us canceled, and then I delete it all.
You mean every one of your comments?
What's that?
No, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to just quick ask Jeff, pick one of these teams and just give an answer, and then we'll move on because David and Katie want to speak. But which one of those teams doesn't make the playoffs?
I have to really wait till their roster's complete, right? Like, so right now with the questions with T. Higgins and Cincy, that's going to be a significant deal because who's going to replace him? I mean, Burrow can throw. I think Burrow is a significant advantage of having him as a quarterback, right? The loss of Mixon's important, but they picked up whatchamacallit to back for that. So I'm not really worried about the run game. They signed a tight end, which means that they're moving to use the tight end as a passing guy. They have it in 4 years, or 3 years, excuse me. So I think that they can make up some ground, but if all of these teams are there at the end, it would be Cincinnati, right? That I would say for sure I don't believe would make it to the playoffs.
Okay.
And them in Pittsburgh will be 3-4.
All right, David.
Oh no, KD. Let KD speak. I already spoke on this, so it's KD's turn.
So I think it's just like what I was telling you guys about the media using wordplay, right? Because if we look at this, we say, hey, okay, you guys are basically saying these teams are complete. And when we say complete, we're thinking on a 100 percentile, right? Well, in all actuality, if we actually look at this a little bit closer, it could be, hey, look, these guys are more than 55 to 60% ranking in the NFL, in the division, or in the NFL top part of the team or whatnot. It doesn't mean that, hey, one of these teams is 100% complete when it comes down to not having any holes or Super Bowl ready or whatever it may be. To the point to where we watched a quarterback not have premier receiver play, but he's won the Super Bowl, both times without it, right? So again, not having the receivers, not having the running backs, that stuff kind of doesn't really matter if you can basically take what you got and you learn how to highlight that particular player's potential. So I think again, I think it's early to trying to forecast who's not going to make it. But if I'm looking at all the different pieces, because look, we talked about it earlier. Ayuk, if Ayuk is on the move, does that change the whole dynamic of San Francisco as a whole? And I would tell you, it wouldn't change the dynamic of them as a whole, because you look in their division, they're probably still going to win their division. You look at San Fran's division is just not competitive. So I can't say San Fran's going to be out, even though they may lose a premier receiver in Ayuk. Same thing with Cincinnati. But the difference is you got a Baltimore, you got a Pittsburgh, you got a Cleveland. And then on top of this, with Cleveland, if Chubb doesn't come back until week 12, and then he's limited, then that we seen what Cleveland looks like without a run game. We seen that. So again, it's you look at all our teams. The same thing with Baltimore. If Baltimore, for some odd reason, Derrick Henry gets dinged up, that changes Baltimore's dynamic. right? We got to play a lot more defense than we are accustomed to recently when it comes down to scoring defensive touchdowns. So again, for me, I don't want to really kind of say, hey, okay, look, one of these teams won't make it just yet. But I don't look at it as, hey, these teams are 100% complete either, because that most complete could be, hey, 50%, 55%, could be 60%, could be 35%, could be that they don't have any glaring holes. I don't know the metrics that was used to come up with this list. So
I think the one thing that this list has in common, and this is all I'll say about it, which I've preached upon, is every one of these teams here has continuity. And that's an important, they do, regardless of what you think, Eric. These teams have, San Francisco has Shanahan, Harbaugh in Baltimore, Reed in Kansas City, Campbell in Detroit, Sirianni in Philly, Zach Taylor in Cincinnati, D'Amico Ryans, and that's the question mark, but they're just so loaded with talent. You got, what's his name, LaFleur in Green Bay, and you got Stefanski in Cleveland. Every one of those teams outside of D'Amico Ryans, they all have the continuity. And again, we'll see what happens with Houston, because Houston, based on their talent that they acquired offensively and defensively through the draft last year, this year, getting Stephon Diggs and all that stuff, that puts them in that conversation. But again, 8 out of these 9 teams have continuity. And I understand your point about Tomlin, but that whole team coaching staff is made over. You've got a veteran in Wilson. You got a backup in Justin Fields. I'm not knocking that, Eric. I'm just saying.
Timeout.
The continuity of these teams
All right.
far outweighs.
I'm out about Cleveland. I mean, because I actually watch or read and study this stuff. What's their strength of their team? Is their offensive line on offense, right?
Who?
Their offensive line on offense, right? And
Sure.
so the Browns offensive line.
Their
Well,
defense.
they're
Their strength.
on offense. It's offensive line because Deshaun Watson and their quarterback play and
Sure.
Paul
Go ahead, Eric.
Winston, he's not anything
Sure.
great either.
So their offensive line, yes. Go ahead.
Callahan's gone, right? So their continuity is now they have a different offensive line coach, right? And some significant injuries to the offensive line. I don't know if we can say they have continuity because, I mean, they've gone – the furthest they've gone is in the second round, and they have a different quarterback who hasn't panned out. They got a lot of drama that's going on. Since if Baker Mayfield was still there and we're talking like, hey, they've got continuity on offense in 3 or 4 years, they've been consistent. No, I mean, they've got continuity on defense, and the rest of the team is not continuity because, one, their great offensive line coach is gone, and 2, they haven't been able to get in a rhythm with their quarterback since last year. I mean, Flacco gave them the best quarterback play they've had, and significantly since Baker.
Are you talking about the Browns or the Steelers? Because this sounds so Steeler-like in this conversation. Your continuity is on defense, and you're off. No, I'm not talking shit. I don't even want to talk to the Steelers. Listen, here's the deal. Katie made a point that was good, and I'll say you say that relies on a run game. If Chubb isn't back, then we know what it looks like when Cleveland doesn't run. Ford ran pretty well. They brought in Hunt last year. They didn't have Chubb for the whole season damn near, and they did fine, right? And yes, it was because Flacco was there. They did fine because they beat you, and they actually went to the second round of the playoffs last year. They didn't. They lost to Houston the first round. I got you, but they made it. What I meant beat you, as I'm talking about, when you look in standings, you're playing a third place schedule. They're playing a second place schedule. So that being said, they brought in. They still have Ford. Naeem Hines they brought in, and I know they got another guy. And I know it's not the best answer. I'm pretty sure that they'll probably re-sign old boy because he will come back there more than likely because he hasn't signed with anybody else yet. What's his name? Kareem Hunt, right? So all that being said, again, if they can score 16 points, Eric, they win games because their defense is better than yours. And I mean, it's just the way it is. So they were better last year than your defense, and they improved in the offseason again to be better than yours. So at the end of the day, complete team, sure. You advise them, and I get it, but that's a Steeler fan thing. I get it. I'm going to buy it.
I'm not taking the bait. I had 13 touchdowns, and they won 10 games. I mean, that's enough. That's
right.
That's all I got to say. I mean, that's all I got to say. You won 10 games, 13 touchdowns. We're not going to debate. You won 2
yeah, but
games.
they had Joe Flacco, who's 90 and still won more than you.
More than 13 touchdowns, didn't they?
Yeah, because they actually had a decent offensive
and down the
coordinator.
stretch, the Cleveland defense was
Arthur Smith offers you nothing, so just so you know.
Down the stretch, we're talking
Sean, what's the next question?
All right. It's not a question, but we can take this down. I want to go through another little article I read today on the NFL Network by Judy Batista. She's on the Insiders of the Ian Rappaport and stuff. And she made 10 bold predictions about this coming up season in the NFL. I'm going to ask you all. I do not want commentary. I just want you to say, I'm buying it or I'm selling it. Those are the only two things that should come out of your goddamn mouth. Okay?
Yeah, right.
I will. Okay. So her number one bold prediction: the Chicago Bears will make the playoffs. KD, are you buying or selling?
Buy-in.
All right, Eric.
So
Okay, Jeff.
Man, I'm going to sell it. I don't want to, and I really want to have a commentary right here, Sean. But I'm going to listen to the rules, and I'm not going to say shit else. But I'm going to sell for now until Caleb does something, which I think he's not going to do anyway.
Okay, David.
Selling.
All right. I myself am selling. It makes me dirty.
Oh, Katie's a lone wolf here.
Yep. Can you give us an hour or something there, KD? Nothing? Okay, good man.
Where the
All right,
Browns
her
go?
number two bold prediction: the New York Jets will make the playoffs and lose in the divisional round. I don't care when they lose. The New York Jets will make the playoffs. Are you buying or selling, David?
Bye.
Okay. Jeffrey.
Buying.
Eric.
Super Bowl buying.
Oh, God.
No, they can't, Eric. They don't have Russell Wilson.
KD.
I'm buying.
Okay, I am buying also. Okay, number three. Saquon Barkley just misses getting 2,000 yards from scrimmage, but the Philadelphia Eagles return to the Super Bowl. Jeff.
Just misses 2,000 from scrimmage?
Just
Not rushing, just
Rushing and receiving.
yeah.
Yep.
I'll say just misses. I don't see that being a hard sell. Now, are you saying is it two-part, meaning that he's going to get to almost 2,000 and they're going to the Super Bowl?
I would take out the Super Bowl part.
Yeah, if it's just from him getting 2,000 yards or close to 2,000 yards from scrimmage, I'm going to buy. I'm going to buy that as long as he stays healthy. But yeah, I'll
Eagles
buy that.
return to the Super Bowl. Are you buying or selling?
I'm not buying
we'll
that. I'm selling that shit.
Okay,
Selling.
David.
I'm selling both because if Barkley gets close to 2,000 yards, A.J. Brown's going to demand a trade by the 5th week of the season.
All right, Eric.
He'll play half the games. I'm selling. And I'm selling the Eagles making the playoffs.
Okay, KD.
I'm selling both. Eagles don't back their running backs like that. I had issues with Miles Sanders and the other guy. So, no.
Okay. All right, this one's kind of a three-parter, so you just got to keep track and follow with me, guys. Number 4 was the Cowboys lose the NFC East, make an early playoff exit, and fire Mike McCarthy and hire Bill Belichick for 2025.
Damn.
David, Cowboys,
Okay.
they lose the NFC East. Buy or sell?
I buy the NFC East, they lose.
About the playoff exit early.
I buy the early playoff exit, and I sell that Bill Belichick goes to Dallas.
Okay, KD.
I'm in the exact same order. I don't think Belichick's going there with Jerry Jones still alive.
All right, Eric.
I'm in a so we're selling they win the NFC East, or we're
They
buying?
lose the NFC East.
Okay. I'm selling that. They're going to win the NFC East.
Make an early playoff exit.
I'm buying that.
Okay, and Mike McCarthy gets fired. Bill Belichick.
I'm buying that.
Okay, Jeff.
The Cowboys don't win the East. The Cowboys don't make an exit because they don't go to the playoffs, and Bill Belichick won't be in Dallas.
Okay.
The Cowboys aren't going to the playoffs. This is the most ridiculous Cowboys year I've ever seen. You guys, this is nuts. It's not even close. Ridiculous.
As a Cowboy fan, I'm going to agree with everything Jeff just said. They lose the NFC East. They do not make the playoffs, and Belichick never goes there as long as Jerry Jones is alive. which
Jerry's
probably
alive.
should be for the next 6 minutes.
And shots as your Cowboys fan, I'm just real quick. I think it's a terrible division this year.
I think the
Sure.
Philadelphia Eagles are going to correct everything. But anyway, okay, so number 5 of hers. Bengals go to the AFC Championship game. Jeff, are you buying or selling that?
I'm going to sell it.
Okay.
I'll
David?
sell that.
KD.
Yeah, I'm selling. The dynamic of the team has changed.
All right. Eric.
I don't think you even have to ask.
Okay.
Selling that.
Because if the Bengals go, the Steelers can't be there to lose to the Jets.
All right. Number 6 on her list was the Chiefs three-peat. KD.
I'm selling it. Here's the reason why I think. Well, I can't elaborate it. No mind. I'm selling.
Okay, Eric.
Yeah, they're not in the AFC Championship game, so sell.
Jeff.
So,
David.
Man, you know, this is tough because I always count the Chiefs out, and whenever I do that, they make a flood. I'm gonna, because it's early, I'm gonna buy it. I'll buy that they three-peat.
All right. Number 7's an easier one, I believe. Tom Brady stays retired and is in the broadcast booth next year. Eric.
Buy? I think it's obvious.
Does anyone sell? Okay, David, you're going to sell? Tom Brady comes out of retirement?
If it's a playoff needy team, I think he comes out of retirement.
Okay. Interesting. All right, number 8.
hey, real quick,
Yeah.
without getting into a long diatribe, Sean, I just want to say I don't think that's the case, and I don't think that's the case for legal reasons, right? So not because I don't think he can, but remember, as an announcer, he has access to teams because he gets the early reports and all that stuff. I believe the NFL as a whole will refuse him the ability to come back because remember, Dave, not only is he an announcer, he's purchasing ownership of the Raiders. Like he's in that process. So I think where it would be cool to say Tom Brady's coming out, I think there's too many legal loopholes for him to get around and it'll be blocked. That's just my opinion.
If anybody can get through legal loopholes,
It's Robert Kraft. Tom didn't get through it. Robert paid it.
There you go.
He'll
All
just
right, so number 8.
play football.
This is number 8 is a two-parter. Kirk Cousins keeps Michael Penix Jr. on the bench in Atlanta, but Russell Wilson gets benched for Justin Fields. Eric, let's let you go first on this one.
well, I mean, if anybody watched the show, they know I'm going to sell this because I think Kirk Cousins gets traded. So by midseason, but I'm gonna sell the idea. I don't think I hope for my sake Justin Fields isn't playing this year.
Jeff.
Kirk Cousins will be in Atlanta the whole season. Penix will not play a game unless Cousins is hurt. And Fields will play because Russell Wilson won't last. He will get injured. So I don't think he'll get benched. I don't think he'll be playing long enough to get benched.
All right, just say that they're healthy the whole season.
Then if they're both healthy, then they're both playing. I mean, it's just the way it is.
Okay. David.
Yeah, I'll sell on I'm going to sell on Kirk Cousins. He'll be there. The Justin Fields one is tough because again, I don't think it'll be so much of a benching as much as like Jeffrey said. I think they're both going to play. So situationally and so on. So it's tough to say, but I don't think Russell Wilson straight out gets benched.
I mean, unless they're trying to figure out what they have in Fields because they declined his option, and then they got to know. I mean, are they going to sign him after for an extension if he hasn't touched the field? I mean,
when the Steelers are 5-11, they'd probably let him play the last.
Yeah, but the trade deadline will pass by that time. He'll be a Viking or a Raider before that anyway. So anyway, continuing on, KD, I'm sure it's your turn.
Yes.
Going to play. I'm saying they're both going to play. And part of the reason why I say that is because There are going to be some games where the games are going to be out of reach. It doesn't matter the record, whether they're winning or whether they're losing. And I could see either one of those head coaches saying, "Hey, look, all right, let's might as well find out what we got." Looking on the bench and so forth. So,
All right, so you're going to sell off both.
Atlanta's
So
running the
Penix
table.
is going to play and Justin Fields is going to play. Going to start, and that doesn't
no,
include
no,
injury.
no. Play, not start. Play.
No, they're saying they're going to bench him for the backups.
No. Well, then I'm selling. Nobody's getting benched. No, I'm selling both of those.
Okay. All right. So number 9, KD, you're going to go first with this one. Derrick Henry goes for 1,600 rushing yards with the Ravens.
I'm selling. Here's the reason why we brought him in. Oh, listen, I can't explain. Never mind. I'm selling.
Can you do it in
You
10
can
seconds?
explain. Go ahead, Katie. We've all talked.
So, if you look at the Ravens, even before Lamar Jackson, right? We were never the type to say, "Hey, look, we're going to outside of Jamal Lewis's time in Baltimore." We've never been one of those. Hey, we're going to give you the ball 30 times and let you go off, right? The idea of bringing Henry in isn't the fact that, hey, we're gonna come in and pound you with Henry. The idea of getting Henry is for the January, February push. So their goal is going to be, hey, look, we're going to try and keep this guy anywhere from 290 to no more than 310 carries, if in an ideal world, right? And I think for that looking at that, we're talking, hey, he has to be well over 5 yards a carry if he stays within those 310 carries. I just don't see him doing that the whole entire season. So
now is that for the instance that you return back to the AFC Championship game so you don't run it?
no, because hold on. No, I'm glad you brought that up. Because if you got a 6'5", 200-something plus running back on your team, and he's sitting right next to you, and you playing against the 28th team in rush defense, and you do that, you can't sit here and have a press conference and say anything else that you except that you screwed the pooch.
Yeah, I'm just messing with you, man. You know, I'm just teasing.
No one gets any more comments on this one, but Eric, are you buying or selling 1,600 yards?
Sell.
Okay, Jeff.
I'm gonna sell, but I think it's possible. But I'm gonna sell it.
All right, David.
I'm selling.
I'm going to sell too. I would have to take a little better look at their schedule to see what they're facing.
I'm not so concerned about their schedule nearly as much as I'm what the pass ratio is. So that's because they still run, right? I mean, that's anyway.
Yeah, and Lamar likes to run a lot. So
And I actually agree with Katie's assessment because I think if they're smart, they don't have to use him as much in the regular season to get to that threshold because I don't think that they're going to need that. And in the playoffs is when you need that. And if Jim Harbaugh sits and runs the ball 10 times in the playoff game, Jim Harbaugh should be fired if they sign Derrick Henry. That he should be fired after the AFC Championship game if they lose that game because they didn't run the ball.
That would be John Harbaugh.
Yeah, him too. But they should fire them both just because.
I don't
wow,
like it either.
it's so funny. You mentioned this, and then that's good. That's going to be number 10, because I was like, who the fuck is he talking about? Okay, so number 10, buy or sell. Jim Harbaugh poses an immediate challenge to the Chiefs. I'm selling this one. Bull Dicky. Katie.
I'll buy that.
All right. So I guess whoever just wants to speak now can speak because, you know, David's got to talk.
I'm going to sell.
KD.
I think they killed themselves on offense to compete with anybody.
Yep. KD, you buy it or sell?
I'm going to buy it. I'm going to buy it because if we look at the games that they played with the lack of coaching, I just think Harbaugh is not going to make those many mistakes year in and year out. So I don't know about immediate threat because again the Raiders played them hard as well. So I don't know about the immediate threat, but I do think that, hey, look, the seat's going to get a little warm in that the AFC West champion reign.
All right, Eric.
If we mean be a threat and get 8 wins because Kansas City's getting 10 wins, it'll be interesting for a while.
Okay. Yeah, I don't see that. Well, anyway, that's all I have. If you guys want to stay on and continue to debate, feel free. But otherwise, I'd say we would wrap up the show, and we will.
Can I ask one question of all of you, and then we'll wrap it up? My 11th. If the Texans are playing well this year, and Stephon Diggs is a minimal or not as important, my bold prediction: does Stephon Diggs get traded mid-season? Buy or sell?
Sell that one.
Back to Buffalo.
No.
No, I'm saying they're not trading them. They got to play this whole entire season out. Otherwise, you gave up whatever you gave up, even though it wasn't much for nothing.
Well, no, but they paid him a lot, so you took that
Right.
money. I mean, I don't think they trade him, Dave. I mean, now if they're disappointing, if the team itself is disappointing, not Stephon Diggs' usage. If the team is disappointing, they become a seller's team, maybe. But they're not gonna because remember it's just a 1-year deal. So I mean, they're gonna let them play it out. They're just gonna play it out because again, what can he do? I mean, so if he's having a rough year, if he has 12 straight weeks of shitty and drops 75 passes, then maybe. But the bottom line is, KD made mention of a playoff opportunity for Henry. You don't get rid of a guy like Diggs in the playoffs because even though from a stats perspective in the playoffs, guess what? Everybody else ate on Buffalo's team in the playoffs other than him. So you keep him on the roster.
All right. Well, I think that does it from us here. Thank you for watching from the couch, Sports Talk Radio, and we will see you next week.
All right. Y'all be good. Take care.
Oh, do I got to do the outro? I wasn't.